I want to say a little something about the story we tell ourselves and health. The story we tell ourselves and the state of our physical body. And this has come up recently in many different ways. But a week or so ago, a colleague of mine in one of my courses asked if we could speak about what happened to me with my hips, because I had shared a little bit about it. And her husband has been going through severe hip issues, and I've been there, done that. And I'm living proof that the story that doctors tell you is not always true. And more I'm finding out it's rarely true. Well, here's the question. It's true if you want to believe that, then it is true for you. But it doesn't have to be the truth. And this man asked me, one of the questions he asked me when we spoke for the first time was, what is it that changed things for me? What was the overlying thing, that drive that got me out of where I was with my hips? And if you know me, you know a little bit of what happened to me. If you don't, just really short summary is I had hip pain and lower back pain for years off and on. And about 2016, 17, it just got progressively worse and worse and worse and worse, to the point where I couldn't really dance anymore. As a dance teacher and someone with a dance school, that was it was a big smack to my story of who I am, and also how would I be able to sustain myself, since that's what I did for a living. And then, in addition to just not being able to really dance, I started losing the capacity to walk. I got stuck in the cycle of going and seeing all the doctors and going through all the tests and blah, 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 blah. And, I won't go into detail today. That's not the point. But summing up, basically, the end of the story from the doctor's point of view was, we can't really help you right now. When it gets really bad, we'll give you a hip replacement on one hip, and then when it gets really bad on the other side, we'll give you a hip replacement on the other. So, the outlook was in, I don't know, 2, 5, 10 years. Nobody could tell me because they can't. That's the point. At the time, I really wanted an answer, but they can't really tell you these kinds of things. But, at some point, I'd have to go back and get my hip replaced, have a rod put in there, and which happens to a lot of people nowadays. And so that was what the last thing was that I was told from the doctors. And my question was, well, what do I do in the meantime? And the answer was, I don't know. It literally was, I can't help you. Don't squat. This is what I was told. Don't squat. Don't do sport. Basically, they were telling me to live a static lifestyle, not to do anything of what I did. So this is where I was left from the medical system. And everybody's different, but inside of me, there is something that goes, there's a big doubt. They can't be right. They can't be right. They might be right about other people. They can't be right about me, because that doesn't feel true to me. It doesn't feel true to me that that I can never get better. It doesn't feel true to me. I really had to wrestle with these things. And it's the story you tell about yourself. And the story that I had been telling myself up until that point was the story that's very prevalent in society in very subtle ways that you don't even realize. But it's the victim story. And it's a story of this is happening to me. You know, why is my body turning against me? Why do I have this body? Why do I have a problem? I have a problem. I have a hip that's a problem. I have a hip that's not a good hip. I have a hip that was born problematic, or, you know, whatever. It's turning against me. It's not doing what I want. I look around, everybody else, other people around me can walk, can dance, and what's wrong with me? Why did I get this? Which is so normal to feel that. Of course it is. But there was something instinctually in me, this part of me that it's hard for me to recognize on my own, but I know there's a courageous seed inside of me. And there's a resiliency inside of me that I can see when I look back. Don't always feel it in the moment, but there is a bounce back resiliency, courageous seed inside me that goes, okay, what am I going to do with this now? And that seed said, well, we got to change the story. Because, and I started with a really, like my goal was really, it wasn't actually the goal of I'm going to cure this and I looked down that road and I thought, okay, I need to have that mentality that it's a possibility. But my goal was just, okay, I want to have the strongest tissues, like the best state of tissues, my muscles, my tendons, my ligaments, my connective tissue, I want that all to be in the best state for the surgery whenever that happens. Because if I go in with tissues in the best state, then that's going to help with the recuperation after. And I need to go in with a strong mind. So I need to work on my mind, because one of the biggest things in recuperation from whatever it is, particularly if you're looking at something, an invasive surgery or something like that, is your mental space and how, again, the story that you create, right? And so my goal was like, okay, then the next, whatever time it is, the next couple of years, whatever, I need to just get as strong as I can get. I need to get as mobile as I can get, and I need to be as strong mentally as I can be. And that was it. That was my goal. And in this process, and I'm cutting a lot of stuff out, I'm kind of just trying to give a summary. In this process is I instinctually found the answer that now I understand from a scientific point of view from my studies that I've been doing, which I'd like to get into later. And that instinctual resolution that allowed me to cure myself, actually. I'm not considering that I'm going to have hip replacement surgery. It's not even on my radar. It's not saying that maybe in the future, but it's not on my radar. I really don't feel like it's going to happen. Which is, I couldn't have said that 5 years ago. And what got me there was this instinctual resolution of I need to start changing how I look at my hip. And so what was my story about it? This is a problem place in my body. This is a weak spot. This is torturing me. This part of my body is taking away my livelihood. This part of my body is not allowing me to live and do the things I want to do. This part of my body is weak. This part of my body makes me depressed. All of these things of what I'm going to give the name of self-devaluation, a local self-devaluation. I was devaluating myself in my hip. In both, but particularly in my right hip was worse. And because of some things that I went to, I started actually to see the emotional side, the emotional component of what I was passing through with the chronic pain and other related things. And I instinctually got this narrative of, no, actually, my hip must be the strongest part of me, the most powerful part of me, because all of these emotions that I can't deal with, all of this stuff that feels so heavy and overwhelming, and that I can't, deal with, my body says, throw it in the hip, give it to the hip. The hip can take care of it. Oh, take that emotion. She doesn't want to deal with it. Put it in the hip for now. The hip will take care of it. Put it there. The hip is strong. Give it to the hip. And so I instinctually kind of knew this was what was going on. And whether, I'll just give another perspective. Whether that's true or not, if I start to create that narrative, I've created now a belief for myself that's going to change the way I look at everything, right? And it wasn't just a belief that I could kind of believe. No, it was something that I really wrapped myself around, and I went, no, my hip is powerful. It's powerful. And because it's so powerful, it's taking on all of my emotional drama that I can't deal with. Now I need to deal with that drama. I need to stare it in the face. I need to look at it. And I need to give grace to the hip that has been so powerful and has held on to it for me for so long. And that was key. That was the key. No, it wasn't like that. It's taken me, I don't know, months, a year to start getting to a place where I wasn't taking painkillers, that I could feel like I could walk normally, that I could dance more in a way that I had before, and actually better, because in the meantime, I started working on my mobility, working on my strength, working on the physical aspect of getting back movements that I had lost in the interim of trying to control the pain. And now, knowing what I know with what I study, that was actually the scientific story. With connective tissue, and that's muscle, cartilage, bone, tendon, ligament, fascia, fat, lymph, blood. With all of that, what creates a problem what creates what we call a program in the body in order to make you stronger in that place is a self-devaluation. This is called a self-devaluation conflict. Devaluing that part of your body, and there, I don't want to get into a lot of details here, but devaluing that part of your body for various reasons is going to create a program where the body needs to strengthen that part then. Okay, we're not good enough there, let's strengthen it. And in order for the body to strengthen, what it does is it tears down tissue first, in the first phase, and then it builds it back up. And the building back up process is always painful because there's always inflammation, and inflammation is painful. But that phase is actually the healing phase. So if we go back and look at my hips being with all that constant pain, I was just stuck in that phase. I was stuck there in the pain phase, right? And because of that, I just created a chain reaction of I could never get out of it. But the story that I instinctively found, that my hip was the most powerful place, was actually correct. Is actually correct. And when I created that story as my narrative, that's when, boom, resolution. And the healing phase that had been stuck in what's called a hanging healing, so the chronic pain, could see itself through. And so my cartilage is restored, my bone is restored, my muscle is restored. Everything, all the tissue parts that were affected is restored. I don't have problems now. I have little moments here and there. They're due to little self-devaluation conflicts that I have, but I don't have the same thing I had before. And I hope to share a bit more in the future about the knowledge that I'm studying. It's called Germanische Heilkunde, or Germanic healing knowledge. Sometimes you hear the name that it used to have, Germanic New Medicine. And this is looking at the cause of disease, which is, it's a biological program that hits your psyche. And when it hits your psyche, it hits your brain and your organ at the same time. 3 levels where you run through this biological program that has a sense to it. And so I hope to share more about that in the future. But to just bring it around to the fact that it's not just a belief now. I know now that the story that we tell ourselves about what's happening to us in the world, and in this case it had to do with self-devaluation. I've had other issues that had to do with other things, and the story that I would tell myself is what kept me in that program, not allowing it to resolve. And I understand now in a visceral way that the body is actually always doing something that's meaningful, that has a sense, and it doesn't feel like that when you're in the middle of it, because if you don't have the knowledge, it doesn't, how do you know, if you don't have this knowledge of what the cause was, what the root psyche cause was, it's really hard to get there. But the fact is, I can see now that every time my body does something, there is a meaning to it. There's a biological sense to it. There's a reason that my body is doing that, to help me survive whatever shock that I've had to deal with. So the body is an adaptation machine. Better than a machine. Machines are built to try to be like bodies. Bodies are like this technological, like this biological tech that is extremely adaptable and extremely flexible to life. And it truly is always doing something meaningful. I feel like for today, that's really all I'm going to go into, just to leave this little seed of wherever you are in your journey and whatever you're dealing with, because we're all dealing with stuff all the time. Could be so as little as a cold, it could be as big as cancer, it could range in so many things, but there's always a biological sense, there's always a meaning for it, there's always something your body is trying to do to help you out of a certain situation. And I'll just leave you with the invitation to step back a little bit, if you can, from the pain. Step back a little bit from the suffering that you feel physically. Give yourself some space and have a look at what's going on with you around your life in terms of your emotions and your psyche. What has happened? What issues have you just lived through? What meaning do they have for you? What are you holding on to about that particular issue? What resolution would be an emotional resolution for you about that issue? You could start just looking at that. And I would say to start with appreciating the magnificent wisdom of the body, because there's so much wisdom in the body. I'm just going to throw it out like that for now. And I hope as I dig deeper and feel more coherent in my understanding, to share, because I've now lived in the last year or so various biological programs, and a couple of them quite serious, that would scare people. I don't share because it would scare people, but because I have the knowledge that I have now, that I've been studying, I could go through it knowing exactly what was happening in my body, knowing exactly why it was happening, knowing exactly what the course of this program would be. I knew it was coming. So when I had the next part of the physical symptoms, I knew it was coming, and I was mentally ready to just go through it and try to stay calm and let it happen and live it, and give my body the space and the rest that it needed to finish what it needed to finish, because what it had done was to help me survive some shocking things that I had gone through recently. And so this knowledge that of Germanische Heilkunde is so precious in terms of being able to get out of anxiety and fear and understand our lives in a bigger picture, and appreciate the wisdom and the meaning that our body has in everything it does. I'll leave it at that for now.